XXFM.
This is Access Houston on 97.9 The Box.
Good Sunday morning. You're listening to Access Houston. I'm your host, KG Smooth, welcoming in the studio. You know, I've been trying to get this man on this program from like 2 years, and it's finally happening now. He hit me up the other day like, yo, bro, I'm in town. I'm like, hey, you have got to come through if you got some free time. Ladies and gentlemen, Houston's own, Mo City's own, you're from Missouri City, right?
Mo City, yep.
Mo City's own, Kendrick Sampson on the program. What's up, my guy?
What up, boy?
How you doing, boy? What they do, baby? Yeah, we here. Listen, the debates last night. I'm going to just jump right into
it. Just stressful.
Yeah, man. I mean, I got to be honest. Nobody looked really strong.
No.
And then I was thinking, I was like, who looks presidential going off of the looks? And I know with old boy in office now, like that is out of the window. But
right.
I was looking at who looks presidential. If I was to see them, I'd be like, yep, that's the president. In all honesty, for me, it was Joe Biden and Beto O'Rourke. Them were the only two for me that looked
interesting. Because my Joe Biden, I am so done with. I'm like, if he, because I'm just like,
I know he's one of the old, and he
stumbled through that debate so bad last night. Like Jorge Ramos, it was the star. Jorge Ramos and Lindsay.
Yes.
What's her name?
Lindsay,
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, her name escapes me, but yeah, Jorge was the
the black woman and the Latinx man.
Yeah,
were like, I'm gonna represent my community strong.
Yeah,
and they did it.
And Jorge
said, what did you do? He looked at him like, I'm greasing up my knuckles, and I'm gonna give this one real strong to you. What did you do during the Obama administration to prevent deportations? Did you do anything behind the scene? What did you do?
Right.
Joe Biden went through, I don't know what, meandered through all of Obama's accomplishments, right, and then was like, and Jorge said, you didn't answer the question. And Joe Biden said, I was vice president. And everybody in the audience was like, what the fuck? What does that mean? That doesn't make no sense.
Doesn't mean nothing.
When Lindsay came in and said,
tiebreaker.
Right. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, I live in America. What are you talking about? Oh, and that's another one he said. When Bernie was going after him about, Joe Biden came out on the defense, or offense, actually, in the beginning. He just came out like, well, this is, granted, the question directed at him was, you differ from the opponents on your left and right, on healthcare. And so he started, going straight for the jugular for both of them. And Bernie challenged him and says, we pay more in this country than all these major countries for health care. Canada, and he starts naming them, and Joe Biden says, this is America.
Right.
What?
What? That's the same reaction I had.
What are you talking about?
I was like, this is America.
And then when Lindsay comes at him and says, she was taking off her earrings. She was like, you said in this year that you're not going to feel like you have to be accountable for what your ancestors did 300 years ago. How you feel about that now? Mm-hmm. And he, again, stumbled through, somehow ended up in Venezuela, and we were like, where are you going with this? It just didn't, I don't know.
I don't know what was going on there.
And I thought if anybody, because I know a lot of people were talking about Julian Castro because he came after him and was like
trying to make like he had dementia or ageism.
I don't even think he said you said that.
You just said 2 minutes ago.
You just said that 2 minutes ago.
Right.
And whether he should have done that or not, I don't really care to debate on that. My whole thing was, if after last night, people are using that as an excuse to be like, well, you can't, like, ageism and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no. Here's the hard fact. He meandered through that debate, stumbled through it. He looked bad, in my opinion. And he didn't have any real answers to in terms of accountability for his past. They didn't ask him about the 1994 crime bill, which is one of the most damaging things to
Ever.
Black and brown communities.
3 strikes you're out. I remember growing up and hearing that. I was like, even as a kid, that didn't make sense to me.
He was, crown. It was the Biden bill. It was literally the Biden crime bill. And talking about I wrote the damn bill. Bernie always says I wrote the damn bill. He could say that about the crime bill. And so for me, I'm like, if the establishment Democrats are gonna try to shove him down our throat, we are going to lose.
We're going to lose. We're absolutely going to lose. I've already made up in my mind that Trump is probably going to win again. I'm hoping that fatigue will set in and folks are just like, we just want him out of there. But oof. And then we got Russia. He still got Russia. Because Russia is here, they're hacking us. Even as I talk to you right now, nothing is being done to secure our elections. And to know that the CIA had a spy who was in the Kremlin next to Vladimir Putin, who was telling us in real time what they were doing. And now that we know that it is real, and still nothing is being done.
Look, I think we have a chance to win. I do think we have a chance to win. Even with all this corruption and everything. You said what?
I said I hope Beto gets up because I
Beto,
really like
I don't
him.
think is going to be it. I mean, I think he's going to rise up a little bit after this debate, but I think he was like 8th to the side. Like, I don't think he's going to rise up that much off of, I mean, a lot of people gave him his due because of how he handled El Paso, but he's good at more local. He's not, I don't think, national level. He's, for me anyway, I don't think that he has the enthusiasm, right? I think he definitely has it in Texas, and Texas is like,
he turned the state purple.
Is it. Yeah, he inspired everybody. He showed what was already available, which is that this state is a battleground state. Right. But he proved it and made people believe in it, which is, invaluable. Like, he deserves his due for that, and the way he handled the shooting in El Paso. Like, he's and people gave him that. I don't think that outside of Texas, though, he has that same enthusiasm from what I felt anywhere else in the country. But what I do think is we need grassroots in order to win 2020. Grassroots is leading. That's why we have the questions that we have at these debates. That's why the debates questions were so strong yesterday. That's Fire Pantaleo in the last debate, and immigration, and it's because of grassroots efforts. And without grassroots efforts, we will lose. And we have to have a candidate who is inspiring and who has connections to grassroots.
And so right now, who do you think that is?
The ones that, I mean, it's not even a thought. Like, I know that Elizabeth Warren has grassroots connections. I know that Bernie has the strongest grassroots connections. That doesn't mean that a lot of people are happy or whatever, however you feel about them, they have the strongest grassroots presence.
For a moment there, I thought that Warren was the new Sanders.
I don't know what that means.
So, everything that Bernie was running off of in 2016, that now, Elizabeth Warren is kind of piggybacking off of that in her support for all of the plans that she has. And so saying that, just how Bernie was the guy in 2016, I think that Warren, she is the guy girl kind of this time around, because they're still tied, for second. Like, I'm seeing the similarities, and I'm like, maybe Warren is the new Sanders.
They have their similarities for sure for decades. Like, they believe a lot of the same things. I think I think they're both in their own right. I think Bernie is, Bernie has Warren hasn't ever faced, like, people just did not like Bernie.
Right.
Like, I was campaigning with Bernie, and like, the media did not like him. People did not like him. He's not
the Democratic establishment did not like him. So
Democratic
much so that they
establishment did
lied
not like
and said
him.
that Hillary won states in the primary that she actually didn't.
That's what I'm just like, people did not. And to be completely honest, I love Bernie. I love Bernie as a person. I know him. I love what he's done to push this conversation. He's done more than any politician in decades to push the conversation to where it needs to go in terms of Medicare for all and like actually listening to grassroots people and taking money out of politics and all of that kind of stuff. That is, he has transformed politics in a lot of ways. But he hasn't ever been like the warm, fuzzy, like likable, digestible kind of.
He's from Brooklyn.
Candidate.
He might be too hard.
He hasn't ever been that. And so, Elizabeth Warren is actually very warm, and she makes things, she explains things. She was the teacher. She was a public school teacher, and that's kind of how she presents things, but she knows policy inside and out. They have, democratic socialists, capitalism, like they have their differences. And I think they've both earned their place to be acknowledged individually for their achievements. Both of them have done some really, really strong and amazing things. And now, they're the top contenders, in my opinion. I don't think we can go. I think the polls are based strictly off of name recognition, right?
Yes,
how many people know these people's name, right?
Right.
But in terms of who's
getting
win,
polled too,
who's getting polled,
not unless you have a house phone. Because when I had a house phone, like, I got polled. It would be on a Sunday evening. They would call.
Well, they're saying Democrats and all these pundits are saying that in order to win, we need to register these. Register new voters and take advantage of all of the new voters that came in, the flood of new voters that came in during 2018 and during the midterms, and like all these young voters and like voters of color that didn't vote and all this stuff. And I'm like, those people are, if you're talking about that we have to engage them and that they didn't vote and that they're new and all that, they're not participating in polls. Right? These are not, right? You're not going to be able to gauge that. What's going to be able to gauge that is grassroots folks, people that are out in the community doing the real work to engage these people and try to, like, knocking on doors when it's not election season, who know these people by name, and if you don't have the inspiration and the connection to that community, you're not going to move those voters. And that's the only way to win. When I was talking to Texas Dems the other day, the Texas Democratic Party, something really important, we were on a conference call, and what was really dope to me was how they explained why Texas is a battleground state. I did not know Texas was only 44% white. 44.
I didn't know that either.
And that includes Hispanic whites.
Wow.
That's not just white people in general that don't have, any Latinx ties or Hispanic ties, right? That is 44%, right? And so you have, black and brown people in rural areas.
Right.
In Texas. A lot of them.
Yeah.
You have, in this city, white people are 29%. Right. As of 2000, I think it was 2014 that I looked at last time, 29%. They said that 1/3 of the children in Houston, Harris County, 1/3 are children of immigrants. 1/3. So you don't have people here who are like, we're not super close to the border, we don't feel that effect. You have people here, especially young people, who are like, my parents could get deported. That is, they're relating to this, right? Going on, yeah. And it's not, and we know that this is the most diverse county, right? So you have that being the most diverse county does not talk about we're not talking about French, German,
Right.
Right. English,
Right.
and we're talking about people of color. And
because there's a huge Nigerian population.
There's a huge Nigerian population. There's a huge Asian American, Pacific Islander. There's in Fort Bend where I live. There's a bunch of Asian American. There are. I mean, not where I live, where I grew up. In Fort Bend. There's so many. Beyond what I knew, and I kept hearing this over the past couple years, but when I heard it in statistics and hard facts that I had kind of refused to believe at first, especially when I was campaigning with Beto and, some other candidates here in Texas, I was like, man, that can't be right. That just can't be right. But it is. It is. And we saw it proven in 2018 midterms. We only lost by 215,000 votes in Texas. 215,000 votes is nothing.
Yeah, that's really close.
So we can flip this state. It's not really up for debate. If we don't flip this state, it's because we allowed white people to get out there and vote. The small percentage of white people to get out there and vote against the entire state's interest.
I had the county commissioner on, and he
Rodney?
told me, the county commissioner, Rodney Ellis, yep.
He's dope.
He was like, KG, Texas is a blue state. It just votes red.
100%.
And I was like, And then he broke it down to your point, to the rural counties and all of that in those pockets. And those folks, them white folks, they go out and they vote. Now, if everybody, people of color, our Latino family, we could easily flip the state.
Yeah.
But
100%.
we just don't get out. He was like, Texas is a blue state. It just votes red.
But I don't want to just say, like, we don't get out. It is that we don't get out, but it's also that no one has made a real effort to, like, a real genuine effort to campaign to us. Not like, I need you to come and vote for me.
That's how Trump got in 16.
You see what I'm saying? Like, white people thought he's really speaking our issues. White people are like, these people are coming for our jobs. And
which is a bunch of crock, because it ain't them. It's the robots, idiots.
Yeah, I
it's
mean,
the robots.
that's one thing. And then so number one, the rich white people are coming for your jobs. Right? Because they're outsourcing them, right? These wealthy, corporations and all that, they're outsourcing your jobs. They're coming for your jobs. These white people coming for your jobs. But you're right. You also are right at the same time. People of color are coming for your jobs, right? Because they're being outsourced. Right?
Facts.
Okay, so white people are actually seeking out people of color to give your jobs, right?
And let's be honest, the lower level jobs, like, the gardening and, all of that, like, white folks, are y'all really doing that?
Either way, I'm like, I ain't trying to convince white people that I ain't trying to come for their job. Because some of y'all going to have to step to the side anyway, because y'all are over here oppressing not only us, but your own people.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to come for your job so that I can make sure that people are liberated.
There was a meme, or it might have been a political cartoon that I saw just the other day, and it was 4 men in a boat, and the boat, it was tipped. And so the poor people, where the water was coming in, they had the buckets, and, they're trying to get their way out. And then the 2 other dudes are at the top of the boat, in their nice clothes, like laying back, like, looks like you got a problem. And he's like, and then the ones on the bottom, I think the caption said, like, we're trying to save our lives. And I was like, yeah, this is America. It's the have and the have-nots. Because little do these poor white folks know, like, whatever affects us, people of color, also affects you.
Yeah, eventually it's coming right for your ass.
Yeah, and I never got why they were so against the very thing that would better help them. Because that's like you're voting against your own best interest.
That is the established white supremacy. That is the purpose of white supremacy. White was created. There was no white. There is no such thing as white. It's literally French, German, and all of the tribes that were within them, Dutch, English, and different Irish, and the tribes that were within those nationalities, right? The different ethnicities that were within those nationalities. They came here and they all hated each other. They hated each other. The only reason they band together was because there were 1% rich white people who could own these plantations and slaves and all this stuff, and they were like, oh, wait, these poor people are banding together with slaves and doing revolts and shit.
We can't have that.
We can't have that. They were like, let's elevate them a little bit above those darker skin and say, you know what? If we give you a little bit more privilege, you can vote. Maybe one day, maybe you could be as rich as me. Maybe, but I'm going to put all these policies in place so that you can't.
And you're
so
better than them because you are this color.
Yeah, just elevate you just a bit. And the only thing y'all have in common that we can use to unite you is that you are not
them.
That you don't have that color.
That.
Right?
You listen to Access Houston. We got actor Kendrick Sampson in the building. Just we talking about it all. I want to. You've done social activism. I think that you're probably more famous for your social activism than probably your craft, because you do a lot and you are everywhere. And so I was itching to know what you thought about when Roc Nation, Jay-Z, and the NFL decided to collab on this whole social justice. On the one end, you got the whole, entertainment aspect of it, and then the social justice part of it. Now, the culture was all up in arms over that, and they're hearing this one soundbite, and that's our problem today. We live in sound bites because when I watched the entire 46 minutes of that press conference, everybody's grievances and, complaints were addressed and they were talked about. It's sad that whatever the initial narrative that is put out, that is the one that sticks. And then once the rest of it comes out, or the facts, or that, somebody was wrong, or you didn't get it in context and this is what it really meant, like, it seemed like that doesn't matter. It's always the first narrative that gets put out. And so after I watched the whole 46 minutes, I was like, okay, what did you think?
I didn't watch the 46 minutes. I have no interest in watching the 46 minutes. My whole thing is like, we have to be really careful and really clear about the moves that we're making for liberation. I have not spent any time in the details of that deal and what they're doing, and because I've been working on liberating my people, okay? And when I saw that, I was averse to it. I'm not saying that if anybody has, dug into all of those details that they're not working on liberation. Not saying that at all. I know some people who are doing way more than me that have looked into that. I just chose not to. I was like, I'm gonna focus on this, right? But my thing is, and I'll give a clear example, Van Jones. I love Van Jones as a person. I think he's really cool. But he got into bed, essentially, saying that bringing in Kim Kardashian and highlighting her as this criminal justice reform activist, and then getting into, with the Koch brothers and Donald Trump and their administration for this First Step Act, that, from what I understand, freed, a couple thousand people, and a third of them were deported. Right. I'm just like, if you didn't think that they were using you, you're touted as a progressive person of color, a leader in this, and their establishment is so deep. It's so deep. It's so heavy. They have, their ancestors have built what they're standing in now, and it has so many arms and so many legs and so many roots and strongholds. And if you don't think you're going to get caught up in that by partnering with them, if you don't think that they're going to use you and spit you out, then you got another thing coming. And so he partnered with these people and then gave them, I'm not even going to say what he said, but he gave Donald Trump some really good sound bites to use. And then the other day when he's over there farting around looking stupid, attacking Chrissy Teigen and John Legend, more Chrissy Teigen, because you know how he feels about women, right. You know, and especially women of color. And then she gave it back to his ass real good. He used Van Jones
as the
to say that he was doing, you know what I mean? And so my point in that is not anything against Van Jones. It's not against, you know, me talking, you know, lifting up anybody or putting down anybody. My thing is in with your example of Jay-Z and NFL is a machine. And it's been an oppressive machine for a long time. And if you think partnering with them, you know what I mean, to liberate us is wise, I hope you have your ducks in a row and a whole establishment behind you, because otherwise what they're going to do is use you and spit you out. You're touted as this liberation
martyr.
No, liberation like entertainer, right? You're really utilizing your money and everything to do what you believe is best to help your people, to educate your people, and he's done a lot of great things.
Yeah, his record speaks for itself. That was my argument. I was
done a lot of great
let's
things.
see what he does, because his record does speak for itself. However,
I don't know that this is the best move. I don't know that it's not going to be detrimental to people of color. That First Step Act did nothing to liberate us. It didn't. And I don't know. I mean, this is a business partnership. Maybe he'll benefit from it, and we could say, well, at least one black man, you know, like, but if he has his influence and ultimately at the end of the day, he only has to answer to God. It ain't my opinion that matters. It's not your opinion that matters. It's not the people's opinion that matters. He's going to go in there with his best intentions, and that's all he could do. But I think that, you know, he should really, and whoever else goes into these situations, when you're going into an establishment, when you're going into a establishment that's been built and used for white supremacy, like
they own a whole day.
Yeah,
they own a whole day. Sunday used to be the Lord's day, not
you see what I'm saying?
They own a whole day. Kendrick Sampson, H-Town's own, is in the building. We talking everything, and to that point, I read the Mueller Report. I listened to the Mueller Report. I did read some of it when I didn't have nothing to do, but along as I was listening. And the first volume, Russia did a number on us. And I knew back in 2016 when I had first heard about them meddling in our elections, and then, you know, seeing they got their guy in. And I remember saying on this very show, this is going to be dangerous for us because we're not going to know the implications and how it's going to affect us. And now we're seeing, you know, some of these things. They play the long game. I mean, they started bringing people over here in 2014 to set up shop. And so all of these groups that had these protests, and they knew that race was our Achilles heel, and so they propagated that. The whole Colin Kaepernick kneeling NFL thing, that was perpetuated by Russia. Russia was the one that their bots on social media revved that up, and they had us at each other, going, arguing, doing this, boycotting, not, you know, people having fights. That was all Russia.
wouldn't say all Russia.
Well, I mean, not all. Well, yes, you're right. That was all Russia.
They played
and
a large part.
They continue to play us. All of these videos that go viral. You know, a white woman, you know, berating a Mexican, telling them to go back. You know, white man, you know, threatening to shoot these black kids if they don't, you know, get off his property or off the street or whatever. Even though these videos are real, they go viral because of the Russian bots, and they know exactly what they're doing, and it's working. And so I keep yelling like, we've got to wake up and pay attention, but everybody keeps thinking that I'm crazy and that I'm just, you know, just talking for no reason. Like, no, it's real.
Yeah.
Like, it's real. But nobody's going to believe it until the Russian tanks are rolling down the street and they coming to our doors telling us what to do if we don't flood here in Houston first, or the world isn't on fire due to climate change. So one of the two is first.
I think, one, I want to be careful in saying it's like this is all Russia, because it discounts some of the grassroots work that goes on, right? So a lot of these videos going viral and the work that's going on in the streets to hold people accountable and to pass like historic legislation like AB 392 in California that was the strongest police use of force bill ever. And then here in Harris County just ended cash bail for Class C misdemeanors.
Had
in
a major
honor,
debate on this show with one of the bail bondsmen about that.
Get him out of it. Why even waste your time with the bail bondsman?
I
like
obliterated his ass.
Good.
You hear me?
I'm like,
go ahead.
You know, but like, you know, with that extensive settlement, like now they're talking about childcare in courts now. They're talking about making sure that people have cell phones and transportation, know your rights displays in courts. Like that was inspired by Sandra Bland. And Texas Organizing Project took that on, Tarsha Jackson, and these amazing organizers, I think it's the Right to Justice Coalition or the Texas Justice Coalition.
Which Sandra Bland would be alive today if this bail system was not in place. She would be alive to this very day.
She couldn't afford the $500 to get out. Right? You know, so that's, and there should be no price on freedom. It shouldn't be like Sandra Bland and some rich white person gets in the same thing, but the rich white person can afford the money to get out and she can't. There should be no price on freedom like that. And we're one of two countries, major countries. I think the other one is the Philippines or something that still uses cash bail. Like it doesn't make sense. Right?
This is America.
Right. This is America, Joe Biden. Get out of here. So, I mean, like, you know, I think that there is a strong grassroots component to what's happening in America. Russia is definitely meddling in our elections and hacking and all of that. But they're utilizing what's real. What's real. They could not manufacture this stuff and make us believe it. They're not manufacturing racism and, you know, grassroots efforts. They're seeing where it is. They saw Black Lives Matter was actually having movement in 2016 and doing some amazing things, some historic things, and they said, okay, let's capitalize on that.
Did us in.
But they didn't do us in.
With the other
we did us in.
Yeah, we did us in, but I'm thinking of the other, like, you know, fake groups and things that they had created to help, you know, add more fuel to the fire.
And so what I think is important in this is because it's like watching, like, oof, I'm not. But like,
you ain't gonna go there. We'll talk about it off air.
Yeah, but like, it's like watching two people. Like, if Joe Biden and somebody else that like Cheney or somebody went back and forth with each other, you're like, but you did the crime bill, but you served Iraq and you like. Okay, both of y'all are
wrong.
Foolish. Yeah, I'm like, you know, I can't. like Bill Clinton and I guess a better example would be like Bill Clinton and Joe Biden going back and forth talking about each other and what they did and well, you harassed women. Well, you harassed women. Well, right. Well, the crime bill. Well, the crime bill. And like it's like, okay, y'all can argue all day. Y'all both wrong, right? The U.S. government and what Russia is doing, like what we've done overseas here in destroying communities of color all over the globe, like in South America, Central America, in the Middle East, in Africa. And feeding violence into them, feeding military-grade equipment, feeding militia, taking out their leaders, saying that we're going to save them, and then going in and making their lives worse. And then when they seek asylum here, we're like, hell nah. Like what America established 400 years of slavery. Slavery didn't ever end, right?
No. I mean,
you get what I'm saying?
The
like
prison system is just slavery.
The prison system, Jim Crow, all this different iterations of slavery, and allowing cops to kill us without accountability, continuing to feed us into the criminal justice system, continuing to make sure that black people are confined to certain areas that don't have the proper nutrition, that don't have, the proper care, health care, whatever.
School to prison pipeline.
Redlining, school to prison pipeline. The oppression in this country that they're either killing us slowly or quickly is crazy. Right, and I don't have to wait for Russian tanks to come down the street. I'm worried about American tanks, or invisible tanks. You get what I'm saying? Military grade equipment that they fed into the police departments here. There's and then big not facts. Surveillance and poisoning a whole city of people, but with water, Flint. Like this is what America is doing. So in terms of Russia, for me, I'm not focusing on Russia. I know it's there. I've read about it. I know the Mueller Report. I know what's happening, right? What I'm more worried about is making sure that I'm identifying leaders in my community, which we should all be doing, identifying leaders in our community that have their ear to the streets, that know what's going on with other leaders and also door to door, right? So that I can check things with them. What's real and what's not? Are we doing this? Somebody else do? You know what I mean? Right. Like, is the government, using us and gonna spit us out? Is this entity, is the NFL, is whatever it is, we can create those spaces, safe spaces, which we need more of than anything right now. Create those safe spaces for community building and building trust and love and making sure that we're not throwing away people, making sure that we're challenging our thoughts and what we've been taught and fed to believe and brainwashed to believe about society and ourselves, about how we're not worth this and that, and how the color of our skin is not as beautiful as white, and all that kind of stuff that we don't even realize sometimes how we've been.
We the best.
You know what I mean? We don't even realize sometimes how we've been conditioned to believe these things. I was talking about the other day, like Jesus Christ on the cross, the story with the two criminals on the side of him. They called them criminals. Some versions call them rebels. Some, call them thieves, and they're believed to be accused of thievery or whatever. And they're hung up on this cross to die. And we concentrate on the fact of them juxtaposed to Jesus, right? And like how innocent he is compared to them, and how one of them's heckling him and the other one is saying, this must be like he's just like, you didn't do anything, you're innocent, but we deserve this, and Jesus like, you're gonna be with me in paradise. And I was listening to this sermon the other day, and I was like, I just realized, like, we really do accept that the two people on the side of him were justly convicted of theft and nailed up on a cross to die, that's okay. That the same system that convicted the Son of God of nothing and hung him up on a cross to die rightfully convicted the two criminals next to him, so-called criminals next to him. that's the type of thing that I'm like, we need to have safe spaces to have those types of conversations. What are we believing about ourselves? What are we believing about each other that we should not? You know?
This is true.
And we can't do that by really digging into Russia and what we can't see and what they're doing over there that we're not ever going to know is real or not.
Over here.
What we can find out is tangible is what's happening in our community, what's happening in our psyche, you know, and deconstructing what we've been taught to believe, deconstructing the white lens that we've seen everything through since we were born. You know, the institutions that we've participated in, what is right and what is wrong, just arbitrarily. What can we, you know, deconstruct around ourselves?
You have opened my eyes, bro. That is amazing. Wow.
I mean,
my brain just totally shifted one time. You listen to Access Houston. We have actor Kendrick Sampson in the building. Wow, bro.
I mean,
I'm sorry, my mind is so. 'Cause I'm blown right now because that's some real.
Yeah,
Man,
I mean, I
up.
was in a makeup trailer the other day, and they were talking about in New York. I was in New York, and they were like, Brooklyn used to be. They were arguing which borough is the most dangerous, and everybody came back, and they were like, Brooklyn's the most dangerous. And there's a big battle between like the Bronx and the Brooklyn, and which one's most dangerous. So they all settled on, no matter what. I don't have no ties to New York, and I don't care if y'all, you know, agree with me or not, because I have no skin in the game on this. But everybody in the trailer agreed it was Brooklyn. I didn't know what to base that off of, but they said it was Brooklyn, right? And so they started talking about, but Brooklyn isn't nearly as dangerous as it was back when they were growing up in the 90s or whatever, 80s, 90s. And I said, what changed? And they said, I was like, besides gentrification, what changed?
Right, the Barclays Center, which brought the gentrification.
Well, they said, you know, the mayors really cracked down on crime. And they started like cleaning up the streets. And they were really like, you know, they all agreed, like the mayors came in, cracked down on the streets. And I was like, oh, really? We're stop and frisk and Rikers and killing people, and they said it's much safer now, and I was like, but is it? Is it more safe? Like they've literally taken the community, either like pushed them out, or arrested them, broke up their families, talking about separation of families at the border, separation of families in our streets every day.
America
for
been doing
400
that,
years.
America's been doing that.
Right? So they're literally pulling kids out of school, arresting them, children, putting them in Rikers. You know, we've seen what, you know, Central Park 5, that's one of the few circumstances that actually receive some inkling of justice, right?
All I could think about is how many more.
How many more? That's what they did
that we don't know
to
of.
black communities and communities of color, black and brown especially, in New York for years. And that does not make us safer. That is a different type of safety, especially when they do get out. They have not been rehabilitated. They've been made worse, and then they send them right back to the communities.
Right back to where they,
you know, or they keep them there forever, right? That is not making us safer, not at all. It's either taking us out, killing us, or killing us slowly, or putting us in cages for slavery. You know, like that's not making us safer. You know, and I know a lot of black people and brown people just accept that this is the system that we live in and that's what we're supposed to do, but it's not.
So what do you think that, what can the everyday person do right now to help fix the problem? Like, I feel like I can do more. Like, I use this platform specifically for us. Like, I am so blackity black, unapologetically black on this show. And I make no apologies for it. As a matter of fact, when Kathy Hughes told me to continue to do what I did, she was like, get more black. And I was like, oh, this is the owner. This is the founder of this company telling me this. So I'm definitely going to go hard. What do you think the everyday person can do to help combat all of this?
Community, build community. We cannot thrive without community. Audre Lorde said, there is no liberation without community. And that's true. There is no liberation without community. We cannot move forward, even if we don't like each other. You know, we have to build community. There's people that we don't like in community, right? But that's our community.
Right.
It's like my family.
Right.
Like, I don't like some of my cousins. Some of my brothers and me, we don't get along. But I'll be damned if you talk about them.
Right.
Right? You not in my family?
Right.
We about to throw down. If you talk about my mama, I'll talk about my mama all the time. You talk about my mama, we got a problem.
We got problems. Right.
And we keep those family arguments in the family, in the house. We'll talk about that when we get home. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we need to be doing, is building community, flaws and all. Building community centered around liberation. Making sure that our focus is always liberation. That is liberation internally, making sure that we are liberated, making sure that we have everything we need to be healthy, despite all the obstacles in our way to get those resources, right? Making sure that we fight for those resources that we don't have to be healthy, and healthy as a collective, so internally and externally. So what does our environment look like? What does our community look like? People. What do the people around us look like? How do we coalition build? We should always be looking for allies and accomplices in this work, like who it has the same thought processes, who, and we don't have to agree on everything, right? But we have to agree on liberation. And that is something that we have to incorporate into our everyday, every moment, literally every day, every moment. And that includes joy, right? That includes having, spaces where we can just dance and have fun. But in those spaces, even in those spaces, we have to be thinking about liberation. It's internal liberation. It's the liberation of joy. That's, if you are a Christian, that's what Jesus was about. Liberation, making sure that you go in every situation, see the most vulnerable person, and making sure they're all right and that they're liberated, right? If they're being harassed, you might not be the right person to go over there, but send somebody over there, right? The right person that you think. Or go over there yourself and make sure that they're okay. If you see somebody, down, sad or whatever, you need something, can I do something? That's liberation. Making sure that we have spaces to rest and heal. Making sure that we're always healing centered, healing the community. Healing is liberation. Right? So that's what I think we should be doing, is community building more than anything else.
No doubt. Actor Kendrick Sampson in this thing. Ooh, we got the whole hour of this show. Before we go, dang, I didn't even get to. I wanted to touch on if you had read any of the essays in the 1619 Project.
I have not gotten around to that yet.
I've read a few essays. It's, bruh, like, I don't know, maybe on the flight, back to LA or New York or whatever. Oh,
yeah.
you do? Yeah, give it a go. Like that very first one, that Nicole, her last name escapes me, but her essay alone just totally changed the way that I felt about this country, because I love this country a lot, a whole lot. And I've always been concerned, for this country. And after reading her essay, I was like, oh, this is why I love this country so much. Even though she's a bitch, and she's like that bad relationship that is toxic and is not good for you, but it's home and there's no other place that you would rather be. And when I read her essay, and I was like, this is why I love this country so much. Why? Because it's ours.
Right.
It's ours.
Right.
We built this hoe.
Right.
For free. To make them rich.
Right.
We built this.
Right.
So it just changed my thought process, and I'm like, this is ours. So when they telling me to go back from where? Bitch, I was here before you.
Right.
This is mine.
Right.
But what you got coming up? What's the next project? Where can people catch Kendrick Sampson next? What you got going? Things that you can talk about.
Yeah, I'm like trying to think. I have there's a movie called Ghosting coming out, which is interesting. Ghosting on Freeform.
Okay, I think I might have seen a preview for that.
I haven't, but I missed the screening because I was working in Fort Worth actually, which was interesting.
Word.
But yeah, Ghosting, starring Aisha D, myself, Kamiko Glenn, on Freeform. That's gonna be cool. And then I think that's out at the end of the year. I think something like that. Maybe during Christmas time, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just finished a pilot called How to Make Love to a Black Woman. And that's Lena Waithe and Kathy. And they are, you know, just magical, you know. And it's a cool project. It's a comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I say that hesitantly because it's deep.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, it's really cool.
Anything Lena Waithe touches, I'm here for.
Yeah, that's a Showtime pilot.
Okay. All right, that's what's up. Are you on the current season of Insecure? Is that because I know that they're filming, or you can't talk about that? All right,
I can't talk about it. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see. Listen, bro. Wow, I feel like I can retire now. Because I got you in here, man. You don't understand. Like, this has been like 2 years when we I first ran into him at Chauncey Glover's Chauncey Glover's project, his gala, and we talked, and then last year when you was helping out Beto, we was talking, and now this year he's here. We done did it. So I'm good. I'm happy. But you got an open invite. Whenever you're in town, you wanna kick the shits, man. Just hit me up, and we gonna do that. So I really appreciate your time, bro. Deadass.
Oh, me too. I appreciate you, man.
No doubt. H-Town's on. Most City's on.
Most City.
Kendrick Sampson, man. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, you too, man.
And thank you for listening to Access Houston. 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 To Access Houston.